My phone buzzed at 2:47 p.m., right as I was reviewing code for our quarterly security audit. The text was short, clinical, like she'd typed it between sips of champagne. I'm filing for divorce. My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything. Pack your things. I'm changing the locks tonight. 6 words that should have destroyed me. Would have destroyed most people. But all I felt was relief. Hi, I'm Marcus Chen. I'm 34, lead software architect at TechPulse, a cybersecurity startup my uncle and I built from his garage 7 years ago. My hands were still cramped from typing when I read Sarah's message for the 3rd time, looking for something, anything that resembled the woman I married. I didn't find her. Just corporate speak and cold calculation. I didn't respond. Didn't call. I saved the screenshot, forwarded it to my lawyer, and went back to my audit. Because what Sarah didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that I'd been running a different kind of security check for the last 4 months. And her message just triggered the final protocol. See, when your wife starts working late every Thursday, when she changes her laptop password after 5 years of sharing everything, when she suddenly needs space but keeps asking detailed questions about company valuation, you notice. Especially when you're trained to spot security breaches for a living. I drove home through San Jose traffic, watching the sun set behind the Santa Cruz Mountains. Our condo building looked the same as always, modern glass and steel in Palo Alto, the kind of place tech couples move to when they think they've made it. I parked in my spot, walked to the entrance, and nodded to David, our building manager. Hey Marcus, Sarah called earlier about the locks, he said, looking uncomfortable. I told her I'd need both signatures since, the HOA rules. I smiled. It's fine, David. Actually, my Uncle Richard owns the unit. It's held in his trust. Sarah's name was never on the deed, just the lease agreement. You did the right thing. The color drained from his face. She said she was the owner. She was really insistent. I know. Can you do me a favor? If she calls again, refer her to the property management company. Here's the number. I handed him a card. They'll explain the situation. I took the elevator to the 8th floor. My key still worked. Inside, nothing had changed except the energy. You know that feeling when someone's rewritten history in their head? The apartment felt like a crime scene where the crime was erasing me. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, closed but still warm. I didn't touch it, didn't need to, because 4 months ago, when she first started acting strange, I'd done something that probably crossed a line. But then again, so had she. I'd installed monitoring software on our home network. Not illegal when it's your own network. Your own equipment. I'd watched her digital footprints like a security analyst watching for intrusion. And what I found made the divorce text almost expected. Hundreds of messages to her boss, Nathan Reeves, CEO of Cyberdyne, our biggest competitor. Detailed conversations about TechPulse's upcoming product launch. Screenshots of our internal Slack channels. Architecture diagrams of our new authentication protocol. She'd been feeding him our secrets for 7 months, wrapped in heart emojis and plans for when we're finally together. But she didn't know I knew. And more importantly, she didn't know what I'd done about it. I packed a bag, just clothes and toiletries, playing the part she expected. Left my wedding ring on the counter next to a sticky note that said, "Good luck with everything." Then I drove to my uncle's old office, the one he kept for sentimental reasons even after we moved TechPulse to a bigger space. Uncle Richard had died 3 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, fast and brutal. In his last weeks, when the morphine wasn't clouding his mind, he'd pulled me aside. I know about Sarah, he'd said, his voice barely above a whisper. Saw her having lunch with Reeves in February. The way they looked at each other, Marcus. That wasn't business. I tried to defend her. He just squeezed my hand. I've been where you are. Built a company, trusted the wrong person, lost everything. I won't let that happen to you. He pulled out a folder, hands shaking. This is the new equity structure. I filed it 2 weeks ago. Your shares, they're on a 4-year vesting schedule now. You've been here 7 years, so you're partially vested, but the big chunk, the 35% that's worth real money, that vests on our 10th anniversary. 3 years from now. Why would you do that? Protection. If she divorces you before the vesting date, those shares revert to the trust. California is a community property state, Marcus. She could claim half of everything you've built, but she can't claim shares that haven't vested yet. They're not assets, they're promises. That seems strategic, cold, smart. He'd smiled. Call it what you want. I call it learning from my mistakes. Now, sitting in his empty office, surrounded by his books on Sun Tzu and Robert Greene, I finally understood. He hadn't been protecting the company. He'd been protecting me from my own loyalty. from my inability to see betrayal in someone I loved. I opened my laptop and checked the secure server. The monitoring logs from our home network were all there, automatically backed up and timestamped. Every message, every file transfer, every piece of proprietary information Sarah had sent to Nathan Reeves. Enough evidence to bury her career. Enough to trigger a corporate espionage investigation. But I didn't want to bury her. I just wanted her to face the natural consequences of her choices. My phone buzzed again. This time, a call from an unknown number. I answered. Mr. Chen? This is Jennifer Park from Morrison & Associates. I'm representing Sarah Chen in her divorce proceedings. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss asset division. Of course. I'm free Thursday afternoon. Excellent. My client is seeking an equitable 50-50 split of all marital assets, including your shares in TechPulse Industries. Given California law, I'm sure you understand this is standard. I let the silence hang for a moment. I understand what you're asking for. I'll have my attorney contact you to schedule. After I hung up, I called my own lawyer, David Kim, who'd been briefed by Uncle Richard months ago. Marcus. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. She made her move. And the evidence? Solid. Time-stamped, backed up on 3 separate servers, authenticated by our IT security protocols. When do you want to deploy it? Not yet. Let her think she's winning. Let her get comfortable. You know, your uncle said you'd say that. The next 2 weeks were theater. Sarah's lawyers sent over preliminary demands. She wanted the condo, half my vested stock, spousal support, and a lump sum payment of $400,000 for emotional distress. The number was so absurd I almost laughed. I responded through my lawyer with a counteroffer. She keeps her car, her personal belongings, and we split our joint checking account which had about $12,000 in it. Everything else stays with me. Her lawyer called mine, furious. Your client is being unreasonable. Mrs. Chen is entitled to half of the marital estate under California Family Code 2550. David's response was calm. Mr. Chen's primary asset is unvested stock options in a privately held company. These are not considered community property until they vest. I'm happy to provide the documentation. That's absurd. He's owned those shares for years. The shares were restructured into a new vesting schedule 8 months ago, well before any divorce proceedings. Perfectly legal. Would you like me to send over the filing? 3 days later, Sarah showed up at TechPulse. She'd never come to the office before, said it was too boring watching engineers code. But there she was, in the lobby, wearing her power suit and carrying a leather portfolio. I met her in one of our small conference rooms. She looked different, harder. Like she'd been practicing this confrontation in the mirror. You can't do this, she said, skipping any pretense of civility. Those shares are mine too. I supported you while you built this company. Supported me? I was there. Through all the late nights, the stress, the failures. You were there, I agreed. Working late yourself. Having dinner meetings. Building relationships. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe? Or recognition. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know you've been busy too. I know about the job offer from Cyberdyne. Nathan Reeves is quite generous with his future employees, isn't he? The blood drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Sarah, I build security systems for a living. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when someone was accessing our network, pulling files, taking screenshots? You were spying on me? I was monitoring my own network for security breaches. What I found was disappointing. She stood up, chair scraping against the floor. You have no proof. Actually, I have 4 months of logs. Every file you accessed. Every message you sent. Every piece of our intellectual property you shared with Nathan. All time-stamped, all authenticated, all backed up on servers your lawyer can't touch. That's illegal. You can't use that. The monitoring. Completely legal on my own network. Your attorney can verify. But the corporate espionage? Sarah, that's a felony. Federal crime. 5 years minimum. She grabbed the table for support. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet. But here's what I do know. You're not getting my shares. You're not getting the condo. And if you push this, if you try to drag this through court, I'll have no choice but to notify our legal team about the security breach. They'll have to file a report. And once that happens, it's out of my hands. I could go to the police about you hacking my computer. I didn't hack anything. I monitored network traffic on equipment I own, in a home I own, for legitimate security purposes. But please, involve the authorities. I'm sure they'd be very interested in the rest of what I found. She sank back into her chair. For the first time since this started, she looked like the woman I married. Scared, small, human. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. I'm just declining to be punished for your choices. You want it out? You're out. But you don't get to burn down what we built on your way through the door. Nathan said the divorce would be simple. That California law was clear. Nathan's not a lawyer. And he's not thinking clearly right now. But he will be. What does that mean? It means Cyberdyne's board won't be thrilled when they find out their CEO was involved in corporate espionage. It means his investors will have questions. It means you might want to reconsider that job offer, because it probably won't be there much longer. I stood up, adjusted my jacket. You should talk to your lawyer. Really talk to her. Show her the messages. Be honest about what you've shared. Because if this goes to court, it all comes out. Every conversation, every file, every late Thursday night. I left her there, sitting in the conference room, staring at her reflection in the glass table. That evening, I met with our company's general counsel, Patricia Ross. She was 60, sharp as a blade, and had seen every trick in the book. Marcus, I need to ask you something directly. Is there any evidence that TechPulse's intellectual property has been compromised? Yes. Her pen stopped moving. By whom? My wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife. She's been sharing our development roadmap, architecture plans, and security protocols with Nathan Reeves at Cyberdyne. Do you have proof? I slid a USB drive across her desk. 4 months of documented communications. All gathered legally through monitoring my home network. She plugged it in, spent 20 minutes reviewing the logs, her expression getting darker with each page. Finally, she looked up. This is bad, Marcus. Really bad. We have to report this. I know. The board will need to be informed. We'll likely need to notify Cyberdyne's board as well. This could trigger a federal investigation. I understand. Your wife could face criminal charges. Are you prepared for that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About the woman who used to bring me coffee while I coded. Who laughed at my terrible jokes. Who cried at our wedding. I don't want to destroy her life. But I can't protect her from the consequences of her own actions. If she'd just asked for a divorce, I would have been hurt, but I would have been fair. She chose a different path. Patricia nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this with more grace than most people would. My uncle taught me something before he died. He said, revenge is just pain you're trying to give away. But consequences? Those teach people who they really are. The board meeting happened 3 days later. I presented the evidence, explained the timeline, answered questions. By the end, the decision was unanimous. TechPulse would file a formal complaint with the FBI's Cybercrimes Division and notify Cyberdyne's board of directors. The fallout was swift. Nathan Reeves was placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Sarah's job offer was rescinded. Her current employer, a marketing firm that prided itself on discretion and trust, quietly asked for her resignation when word got out. But I didn't watch her fall. Didn't track her on social media or ask mutual friends for updates. I was too busy with something else. Uncle Richard had left one more surprise in his will. He'd set up a charitable foundation focused on tech education for underprivileged kids. Initial funding, $2 million from his estate. Management, me. Purpose, give opportunities to people who just need someone to believe in them. I threw myself into it. Partnered with community colleges and high schools in East San Jose, East Palo Alto, places where kids had talent but no connections. We funded scholarships, bought laptops, set up mentorship programs with TechPulse engineers. The first cohort of students started in September. 20 kids, mostly first-generation immigrants, learning to code. Learning that their background didn't define their ceiling. At the kickoff event, one student asked me why I was doing this. My uncle believed that protecting what you build means building something worth protecting. Not just companies or wealth, but opportunities. Futures. The things that matter. 6 months after Sarah's text message, the divorce was finalized. She got her car, her clothes, and $6,000 from our joint account. I got everything else. Not because I fought dirty, but because her own actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. The Cyberdyne investigation concluded. Nathan Reeves settled out of court, resigned quietly, started working at some mid-tier consulting firm. Sarah wasn't charged criminally, but the civil settlement took what little she had left. I heard through David, the building manager, that she'd moved to Portland. Fresh start. New city. I hoped it worked out for her. Not because I forgave her, exactly, but because carrying anger felt like carrying furniture for someone who already moved out. One evening, about a year after everything imploded, I was at Uncle Richard's old office, now converted into the foundation's headquarters. I'd kept his desk, his chair, his books. Sometimes I'd sit there and imagine what advice he'd give. A letter arrived. No return address. Handwriting, I recognized. Marcus, I know I have no right to write to you. I know I destroyed something that could have been good. I told myself I was unhappy, that you were too focused on work, that I deserved more. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I got greedy. I saw dollar signs and convinced myself I'd earned them. I saw Nathan's attention and convinced myself it was love. I was wrong about everything. I see that now. You were never the problem. I was. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve acknowledgement. But I needed you to know that you won not because you played the game better, but because you never played it at all. You just lived by a code I couldn't understand. Loyalty, patience, consequences. I hope you find someone who deserves that code. I clearly didn't. I'm sorry. Not for getting caught. But for who I became when I thought no one was watching. I read it twice. Then I did something I didn't expect. I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote back. Sarah, I got your letter. I don't hate you. I don't think I ever really did. I was disappointed, hurt, confused. But hate takes energy. I'd rather spend elsewhere. You made choices. They had consequences. That's not punishment, that's just how life works. I hope Portland is giving you the space to figure out who you want to be. Not who you think you should be, not who someone else wants you to be, but who you actually are when nobody's keeping score. I found that person in myself over this past year. Turns out, he's quieter than I expected. More focused. Less interested in winning, more interested in building things that outlast him. I forgive you. Not because you asked, but because carrying what you did felt heavier than letting it go. Take care of yourself. M. I mailed it the next day. Never got a response. Didn't need one. The foundation grew. By the second year, we'd funded 60 students. 3 had already been accepted to Stanford and MIT with full rides. 4 had started their own companies. 1 sent me a message that I printed and hung above my desk. You gave me a chance when everyone else saw my zip code. Now I'm building things that help people like us. Thank you for seeing what I could be. That's the thing about revenge people don't tell you. Real revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something so meaningful that the conflict becomes a footnote in a much bigger story. I still live in Uncle Richard's old house now, the one by the lake he bought when TechPulse's Series A closed. I converted one room into an office, another into a workshop where students come on weekends to learn hardware hacking, planted a garden where he used to park his vintage motorcycle. Sometimes I sit on the dock at sunset, laptop balanced on my knees, reviewing code or scholarship applications. The water's calm here. Quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, just complete. I think about Sarah sometimes. Wonder if she found what she was looking for. Hope she did, honestly. Because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I'm finally, peacefully indifferent to what she chose. My story isn't about winning. It's about knowing when to walk away, when to stand firm, and when to build something that matters more than being right. Uncle Richard's last words to me, the day before he died, were simple. Marcus, some people will betray you. That's their choice. How you respond, that's yours. Choose to build, not burn. Choose to grow, not shrink. Choose to matter. I chose to matter. And every student who gets a laptop, every kid who learns their first line of code, every person who gets a shot they wouldn't have had otherwise, that's what mattering looks like. Not revenge. Legacy. Not pain. I'm giving away. Purpose I'm building toward. Sarah wanted half of what I had. Instead, she taught me what I was really worth. And for that, in a strange way, I'm almost grateful. Because some endings aren't about who wins. They're about who you become when the fight is finally over.